What's up, Eager to Pleasers? Welcome back to another episode of the Eager to Please podcast. Joining me today is personal growth, empowerment, and divorce coach, Kelli Sedwick-Drummond, whom I met through Olivia Howell, one of the founders of Fresh Starts Registry and previous guests on the podcast. Quite fittingly, Kelli was hosting a virtual workshop called I Was a People Pleaser and Lost Myself, and I knew she was someone I had to connect with. So I sent her an email introducing myself and asked if she'd be interested in being a guest. And fortunately for us, she's now here to talk about her story and how she's learned to love herself again. Kelli, I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here too.
I'd love to start, if you're okay with it, by having you share a bit about yourself and how you became a personal growth and empowerment coach.
Yes. So I actually, strangely enough, grew up in a religious cult. So I think a lot of the patterns that I've had throughout my life kind of started back then on being very performance-based, lots of rule following, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to a marriage where it felt very comfortable and very much at home for me. And turns out that was actually an abusive situation. So those patterns continued through that marriage. And then I got to the point where it was enough for me and I could not continue that way for my children. I decided to file for divorce and get out. And that was a huge turning point for me. It was not easy by any stretch, but that was where I finally feel like I came back to myself. I got trained in divorce coaching and then the empowerment and growth coaching for women. Also, some of the betrayal trauma and things like that. Mm-hmm. And it changed my life. Coaching changed everything for me. And now it's my goal to be the support that I wish that I would have had, when I was going through those things for someone else, because there are a lot of women out there who are dealing with very similar situations or very similar feelings. And I want to be the change and the help.
I love that. Did you have a coach that kind of put that seed in you, or was it just something because you felt you lacked it, you wanted to give that to someone else?
Yeah, a little bit of both, actually. So it was the training, like the coaches that trained me, that really, that's where the switch flipped, I would say, because I was going through that at the time, and they also served as mentors and were coaches. And so that's where that really changed for me. I started to look at things a whole lot differently.
Nice. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what self-love actually means, because I think a lot of us confuse self-love with being selfish. I mean, at least I have, until you really look at what that means. But loving yourself creates a foundation for healthy relationships in general. So I'd love it if you could break that stereotype for all of us that self-love does not mean that you're selfish.
Well, you're so true. And I think a lot of people think it's like an ego-based or a narcissistic kind of thing when you hear that term. Yeah. And that's not it. It's not selfish. It's coming from a place of compassion toward yourself, maybe the way that you would treat your friends and people you love. But a lot of us beat ourselves up and we're hard on ourselves and we aren't compassionate. And I think that's the real change, is when you start here in the inside first and you work your way out, then your life mirrors that back at you. And I think when you're constantly beating yourself up and being critical, and then it's not without being in check either. It's not one of those things where you don't have things you need to work on, because we all do, right? But it's the idea of it starts with the love for yourself, and then that kind of flows out into everything else.
Yeah, exactly. It reminds me of the little pep talk that you get from the flight attendants when you go onto an airplane. They're like, put your mask on first before you help other people. And I feel like that is so true with relationships and self-care. If you're not taking care of yourself, you are not able to take care of other people. So
that's so true. And I realize too, I think the more you have a better attitude and a love for yourself, the more you attract better things and better people into your life.
Yeah, exactly. Have you read the book called, it's skipping my mind right now. Is it The Secret? I think it's The Secret. It's about like
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it. Okay. But I heard a podcast with the woman who is like the author of that book and the movie producer and all of that. And I was like, this is incredible. I need to see this.
Yes, exactly. Well, a friend of mine, actually, when I had just gone through my divorce, a friend of mine was like, you have to read this because it's literally all about changing your mentality. Instead of putting negative thoughts out in the world, because that then eventually circles back to you, you put out positivity, or just like, I'm giving thanks to this, and you don't even have to be a super religious or spiritual person, but it's just kind of reframing your mind where it's like, I don't want to be the Debbie Downer all the time, or everything negative is happening to me. And when you put something positive out in the world, it does come back to you. And I did feel a huge shift after I read that book. So just throwing a little plug out there. It was a good read and definitely eye-opening. So, okay. Yeah.
Well, true. And I think our brains too, the more we dwell on things, if you think dwelling on what can happen that's good or dwelling on what's bad, you're going to convince yourself in your brain that that's how it's going to play out. And there's a lot of power there that we don't even realize.
Oh my gosh. So true. Absolutely. Mm. So then why is it so hard, or why is it uncomfortable for so many of us to take care of ourselves, or to love ourselves, or to be kind to ourselves?
Honestly, I think it has a lot to do with programming from when we were much younger. Some of these thoughts, we don't question them. They're just there. And until you really take a hard look at that, like, where did that even come from? As an adult looking back, your perspective is a lot different. But so many of those like subconscious, unconscious things that we have, I think that's where that stems from.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is 100% true. At least that's what I take from that. In my own journey, you're programmed to think, well, you have to be humble and you have to not brag about certain things, or, caring for yourself as a priority is backseat to making sure your family's taken care of. Mm-hmm. I remember my grandmother on my dad's side, making sure everyone else is taken care of, or the meal is set for everyone else before she even sits down to eat. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what happened to like equality and all of that stuff? It was very much servant driven. And again, my grandfather wasn't like, that kind of person, but it almost like felt like the role based thing. Like, this is where your role is, and this is where his role is. So it's just very interesting that you bring that up, that it is a conditioning that we're seeing in our family, history or whatever it is.
Yes. And for moms, especially, the idea is sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. And just the thought of like, wait, what if they're taken care of, but so am I?
Yeah.
For years, I'm like, what? That's a thing?
Exactly.
But now, like, that's how it should be. But it is. It's a lot of society programming, too, from childhood, and then just how things are in culture that's been excused and accepted. And again, we need to question those things.
Absolutely. Well, we don't even need to talk about social media, because I feel like that's a huge part of where some of this stuff stems from. Man,
for sure.
Oh, it's awful. I don't envy these young kids at all and the stuff they have to navigate. It's rough.
Yeah, so true.
How did you differentiate between, I know this is not right, it doesn't feel right, I need to be kind to myself, and I need to tell myself it's okay to do something better for me?
Mm-hmm. It took a long time, honestly. I think that I thought the more you stick it out and the more you suffer, that's just how it is, and that's not it. It took me years and probably some age to get to the point where I was like, this can't be what the rest of my life looks like. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you, there was a turning point for me. My daughter, she was older, getting ready to go off to college. And one night, I was home, the kids were all in bed, I had just laid down, and my ex-husband, this was after I had filed, my ex-husband's beating on the door, all mad because the door from the garage to the house is locked. Now, noted, we all have the same key that unlocks it. He's beating on the door. He comes in yelling and screaming. The next day, my daughter texted me, and she's like, Mom, I am so sorry that he talks to you that way.
Aww.
And even though I knew I was on the way out, it made it clear to me that what I was doing was setting the example that it's okay to be treated that way, mm-hmm. and that I would never want any of them to be in a relationship like the one I'm in, and that leaving was actually for them, not staying for them. And I think that that's where, you have all this thought, you want to keep the family together, you want to do all these things because that's how it's supposed to be. That's not always the case. And again, it was a long road for me, but everything after that point just pointed to the fact that it was hard as heck, but I did the right thing because I've seen them now after, and myself too, truly come into who they are now, being in a safe place, being able to develop into the people that they truly are. It's not a performance act or anything like that. And for me, I started to finally recognize myself again and find confidence again and, be happy and come home to a peaceful home and not be all stressed out. So there were a lot of different dynamics going on there, but that was a huge turning point for me where I was like, you know what, I can't do this for me, but I have to do it for them and for their sake and to heal forward and heal generations past, that this was probably going on and what's to come.
Yeah. I guess at that point, your kids were a little bit younger, but now that they're a little bit older, are they able to better understand what you had to do in order to set them up kind of for success? And to your point, there is always this epiphany moment or something that triggers you and you're like, man, is this really what I want for my life? Is this really what I want to show my kids? And so do you think that has helped them kind of set them on a different trajectory to be, okay, that was the good thing that mom did?
Yeah. Well, and I worried about that a lot, initially. I think that for me, I was like, okay, I'm trying the best I can. I hope this is the right thing to do. I don't want to blow up their lives. Again, lots of mom guilt, lots of inward blaming, all of that stuff. But I noticed a shift, and it took time. It wasn't like an overnight thing, a shift in the way they supported each other, which was very cool, but in how close we are just as a family. And I know that especially my older ones, my youngest was 11 at the time and it was way hard on him, but I'm starting to notice now he's 15 and he's really starting to get it.
Yeah.
Whether it's experiences that his older siblings went through, they witnessed more of it firsthand than he did. But I can definitely tell they're looking for things that are healthy in relationships. Yeah. My daughter's married and in a happy situation. My son, he's been dating and had a healthy relationship and now he's a free agent. But, I see it. I see the way they treat who they're with. I see the way there's a lot of little positive things. And I'm like, yes, that's the right track. Yes, that's how it's supposed to be, And so even though it might not have been modeled, the fact that they're learning from what went wrong is huge, right? That's Absolutely. All you can hope for.
Oh, for sure. 100%. That was always one of the things for me that I wanted to be a good role model for my girls, because I'm like, I don't want them learning that this is the kind of relationship that you just tolerate or that you stay in it for the kids or whatever, because we all, have a right to be happy in our own way, without stomping on someone else's happiness. So that is awesome. I'm very happy to hear that. Good.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Did you ever feel like you would compare your life to others? And if so, how did that impact your self-esteem? And, this is not where I thought I would be. I feel like I fell into that trap a little bit. And I'm curious, as a coach, did you ever feel that way? And if so, how did you get out of that comparison trap?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I still do. Sometimes I'm like, wow, yeah, at this age, this is not at all what I thought my life would look like. Mm-hmm. But then I'm also like, you know what? There's still breath in me. Yeah. I still have good years ahead of me and I get to write the next chapter. Yeah. And I think for so long, I was used to just being that in that servant mode, supporting role to someone else's life. Mm-hmm. Now I'm like, it's weird being the main character in your own life. So now I'm like, wow, okay, this is kind of cool, but it's something you have to get used to. And I think, again, it goes back to that whole mindset thing where you train your mind to focus on the positives and what you want next. And you can dwell on what you don't have, or you can focus on what you do have and what the blessings that are to come. And so, again, it's a work in progress, but I do try to really focus on that. And especially going through divorce, there's some really bad times that you go through.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you can try to keep your head above that water and focus on what matters to you. All of those storms, honestly, I think they clear things out and they show you what's really important too. And I know, like, for myself and the kids, it just showed a tremendous strength and a tremendous closeness, as hard as it was at times. And I'm sure there were nights when I was like, oh yeah, I'm not going to make it through. But another thing that helped me a lot was community and meeting like-minded people and supporting each other, especially if you're coming from a place where you've been isolated.
Yeah.
Which we were. And, that was huge. That was a really big deal, surrounding yourself with the right people.
Exactly. What types of things do you coach your clients through as far as how do they embrace themselves with compassion and give themselves the grace to, have the hard days, but also don't dwell in the hard days? Because I feel like we can get stuck in that, I don't want to get off the couch, or I just want to curl up in a ball in my PJs and not move and talk to anyone. How do you coach your clients through those highs and lows?
Yeah, great question. One of the things I like to focus on first, especially when I am starting with a new client, is we talk a lot about values and what's really important to them and who they are. And then kind of everything else I do is based on that. And it's something we come back to frequently. Like, does this line up with what you really want? Does this line up with who you really are? When you make your decisions based on that. But also my background too, previous life, I was a fitness instructor for years. So I'm really big on self-care as far as taking care of your body, taking care of your mental state, getting enough rest, those kind of things. So we'll even work through that. Like, what are you doing to make yourself feel better? How are you managing the stress that you have? How are you centering when everything's chaos? We do a lot of work on that type of stuff too.
Nice.
Yeah.
I did want to dig into that for a second because I find it interesting that a lot of people just don't know what they like or what they want. Like, they don't take the time to be intuitive to their needs. And one of the things that I found super helpful is just constantly asking yourself, well, do I even like this? Do I even want this? I had a conversation with another guest on the podcast asking, what's your favorite color? Do you even know what your favorite color is? And so, it's one of those things where you might know your kid's favorite color or your mom's favorite color, but what is it that you like? So how do you pull that out of people if they don't even know where to start?
No, that's a great question too, because you're right. A lot of people that I talk to, when I say, what do you want? They're like, huh?
I know, exactly. I couldn't tell you either, but yeah.
But sometimes the way I do it is I flip it and I'm like, okay, what don't you want? You know what you don't want. Let's talk about that. And it kind of points them in the right direction of process of elimination. I know exactly what I don't want,
Yes, exactly. Do you encourage people to keep a log, or I'm sure there's various ways you can keep track of that, and not everyone is a journalist, not everyone's like, I don't want to write that down. That's more work for me. But what are some tools that you ask your clients to use or share with them that this is an option? You could try that.
Yeah, a couple things. So meditation was something I was kind of skeptical about myself. So I get it if people are, and they're like, no, this is too strange. But I've gotten into the habit of doing it now a little bit every morning. And I think it's changed a lot for me. So that's one. But also another homework assignment I'll give is a joy journal. And when I say journal, it's so easy. All you have to do is before you go to bed, list 3 things that day that brought you joy.
Nice.
Simple. And then the more you do it, the more you go back and you're like, oh yeah, that was great. And you again, it's getting your brain to focus on that. Yep. Hey, maybe there was only 1 or 2 things. That's fine. Still write it. You have something to be happy about. And again, it's a good practice.
Oh, totally. I love that. Sometimes we at the dinner table will do a version of that where we'll go around and be like, okay, what was your rose of the day, or what was your thorn of the day? And
I love that.
Just it's a conversation starter. It's hard when you have teens and they just don't want to talk about anything, but it's kind of nice to hear okay, well, what went on in your day without a 1-word answer? You don't have to think about it a little bit. Yeah.
Or I'll even say to my son, what happened was funny today. Because it's a very direct, you have to give me an answer. You can't just be like, yes, no.
Exactly. Yes. Asking those open-ended questions is key, because, you're going to get the no or yes or fine, whatever it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So besides meditation, what are some things that you do personally to practice self-love and self-care? That sounds like you also integrate some exercise in there, which I love, because for me, that's a big one for me. If I can't get my morning routine in at least 4 days, sometimes 5 days a week, I'm a grouch. I'm like, don't even talk to me because I haven't released any of my stress. So
yeah, no, that helps so much.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's harder now because it's winter, so you can't get outside as much. But getting outside is another one I noticed for me. Just the sunlight and the fresh air, even if it's just for a few minutes, really helps. I think sun just heals me, but that's just me.
Yeah. My sister said that as well.
I think time with friends is key.
Mm-hmm.
Just time to be yourself and be able to let down and talk. And again, if that piece of community is very healing. Exercise, of course, it does help you sleep better. It just helps you be able to cope with things better. So many benefits. Just love that. I do, fitness classes when I can and just get out, walk, do cardio, things like that.
Yeah.
And what else? Time with my kids is healing. So even though I've got a couple, one off at college, one married in St. Louis, and the other one here with me, we make a point to get together and plan things together. And just having something to look forward to is nice. I think that it gives you that anticipation and something, that you're working toward. That's good.
Absolutely. Okay. So here's an interesting question. I'm curious to see what your answer is, because this month's theme is all about self-love and self-care. And now that it seems like you are in a really great spot where you're comfortable in your own skin and you know what you want and what direction, you kind of want to take it. I loved what you said about everything from here on out is my decision. I don't have anyone else looking over my shoulder saying, you can't do this, you can't do that. Are you now in a place to be open to, having that companion again, to be like, okay, I'm ready to share myself with someone else? And if not, like, how would someone get to that point?
That's a really, really good question. And I think for me, I've kind of flip-flopped back and forth because I think I'm ready. And then I'm like, no, you're not. And then I talk myself out of it. And then I'm like, yeah, you are. No, you're not. That kind of thing. And I do feel like you have to be okay with who you are and where that self-love comes in order to be ready for a relationship. Do I think I'm completely there? I'm getting close. So, I'm open to it, but it took a while because especially if you're coming out of a long-term marriage, you've got to allow time for that to heal, at least in my opinion. I know some people might move a little quicker and everyone has to figure it out on their own. Right. But for me, that was a lot of damage that I was undoing. Yeah. And I think now, a few years later down the road, I'm like, you know what? I would be open to that.
Yeah. No, good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite there yet. And I love what you said. Everyone's timeline is different and there shouldn't be any clock ticking for anyone. It's when you're ready, you're ready. And I guess you'll know, but I was just curious. The process of learning to love yourself and being okay with who you are takes time. And it's not always an easy linear process. Sometimes it's up and down and backwards.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you said that because I think it's important to note that even when you're doing well and you're working on yourself and you're making progress, you never want to think that there won't be a time when you take a step back or two and you might have a little backslide and you're allowed to have a negative day. You're allowed to have a bad day. You can have days where you're like, yep, this just sucks. That's okay. But as long as you have the ability to pull yourself out of that, and that's where those skills come in. They really are skills. Yeah. They're things, that you try to help yourself through those times. But that's all part of loving yourself too, is that compassion for, I'm not going to be perfect. I'm not going to just be on this upward trajectory all the time.
Exactly.
It isn't. It's all over the place sometimes.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. Don't we know that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So are there any certain beliefs or characteristics that you've found either in yourself or in your clients where it's the false story that they tell themselves, that they're not ready to quite let go of this fake thing that they're holding on to that's not true, but they keep holding on to it? What have you come across any of those?
One of the biggest ones with my clients is self-worth. Sometimes it has to do with appearance. Sometimes it has to do with just feeling like you're not good enough in other ways. But that's a big one on starting from scratch in the beginning. Again, when you give everyone else your power and it's they did this or they said that or they made me feel, you have to really question, it's your thoughts, right? You control your thoughts. You control your view of yourself and what you're telling yourself. And so I think the working with clients on the whole negative self-talk is huge, because if you can get out of that pattern, it changes everything. And it's hard, especially if you've been doing it for years. Like, you have to work at that, but it's worth it. It's so worth the work, because you realize that you are incredible. You're the only you. You're a very special person. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, right? You are created to be you, and you have gifts and things to share with the world. And when you realize that, again, it shoots out to everyone that you encounter. It shoots out to your children. It shoots out to your relationships, family, other family members, like all of that. It all starts on the inside. So I try to get clients to realize that they are not the victim. They're actually the one with the power. And once you get that, it just flips everything.
For sure.
And you have to work against it. You can't just, accept it. It's something you actively have to put some effort into shutting that down.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'll ever 100% be there, but like you said, it is an everyday work in progress. So baby steps, I guess, baby steps.
Well, and we've talked about the people pleasing side of things before, and we just had a discussion about this, how I don't know that it ever goes away. I think it's an awareness. So you gain this awareness and you realize you're falling back into that pattern and you make adjustments. So again, there's no quick fix, but it's more of, oh, I see that. Yeah, I'm doing that again, and then you can adjust your behavior.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would love to talk about and share with our listeners?
So much. I just love talking to you. So I'm sure there's more that we could discuss. No, I would just say that I think it's so important, again, to really focus in on the fact that it can be more than one thing. So for me, it was always oh, well, if I'm going to be a good mom, I've got to throw my all into it and I've got to sacrifice myself. And the idea of yes, you can be really great and help people. And I'm not saying don't serve people. I think that's a great way to be. However, burning yourself into the ground, driving yourself into the ground, always thinking you have to be some kind of martyr or, it's a balance, and it's a hard balance to find. But when you realize, hey, I can care for everyone else, but I can also care for myself. That's just a really great breakthrough.
For sure. Yeah.
One other thing I was going to say is just that, too, especially if you kind of struggle with the idea of some of this, the way I think is best to start is kind of like what you would do for other people. A small act of kindness for yourself is a great way to begin. So maybe it's a kind word. Maybe it's getting into the habit of doing one little nice thing. Maybe you, I don't know, take a bath. Maybe you read a book, something. If you can find one kind act for yourself, I feel like the more you get into the habit of those type of things, the more it multiplies too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting because I'm sure we've all heard this. It's would you talk to your best friend like that? And the things that you tell yourself in your head, oh, well, you look terrible in that. Why are you wearing that? Or you just said something that was so dumb. Whatever it is, you tell these things to yourself in your head, but you would never say that to a stranger.
No, that's so true. Yeah. Well, and I think too, in conversations when you maybe word something, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have said it like that.
Exactly.
Or, but we as women tend to beat ourselves up and go over it in our heads over and over again and worry about it and all these other things. And I think trying to get out of those type of habits where you have forgiveness for yourself, you have compassion for yourself as you would one of your kids, one of your friends, just like you said, that's a big deal. Because I laugh because even at night, I always tell my kids, good night, I love you. And I tried to get in the habit of saying to myself, good night, I love you. It's so weird. But I'm you know what? That's it. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
It all, it's the same thing. You can do it for everyone else. Why can't you do it for yourself?
Exactly. Well, because it's so uncomfortable. We talked about that at the beginning.
It is.
It sounds so weird. It feels so weird to be like, I love you. You did a good job today. I don't know. Oh, gosh. Well, Kelli, I love you. Thank you for coming on.
And I love you.
I think that's a really great exercise to try to practice at night. I think everyone listening to this should try that.
Oh, I hope they do. That would be amazing.
Me too. All right. So where can people find you?
Okay, so I have a website. It's www.kjsdcoach.com.
Nice.
I also am on Instagram at kjsdcoach. I am on LinkedIn. You can look for me there. And yeah, I would love it if people reach out. I do a free clarity session for someone who's like, ooh, I might like coaching, but I'm not sure. I can answer questions. I can just chat and make new friends even. No pressure, but this is my calling. I love helping people thrive. I've decided this is like everything in my life has pointed me toward this. It's pretty amazing work.
That's awesome. Are you currently taking on new clients? Are you able to do that from, I think you're in Ohio, right?
Yeah.
So you can do it from wherever.
Correct.
Okay.
So I do over Zoom and really anywhere. But also I do have some in-person like local clients as well, which honestly, I love that too, because being in person is really nice.
Yeah.
But Zoom is still close enough.
Exactly.
And what I've noticed lately too, is a lot of people that I've been working with, it's not, specific to divorce, but it's big transitions in life. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's, I'm about to retire and I don't know who I am without my job, or, maybe empty nest. Now my kids are gone. I don't know who I am. I need to focus on that, so it's been very interesting. So it's more of like a lot of people are in some kind of transition or change, or, this state where your life kind of shifts and you need to address it and you need to figure out what's next. So
yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff.
I love that you said that it's not just about going through a divorce, because that's what I swore to myself. I'm like, I don't want this podcast just to be focused on the divorce, because there's so many other aspects that being a people pleaser relates to. I mean, the divorce was one aspect of that, and sadly that's just what it is. But I love that you incorporate a lot of different phases of life. Now, do you have any upcoming seminars or webinars that you're doing?
Yes. Okay. So the details are not definite yet, but I am part with a couple other coaches that I work with. We are doing another workshop on the people pleasing. And I think we're going to call it something a little bit different, but it's going to be basically those type of patterns. And it's going to be kind of an educational component, but then also bringing in, what do you do? Like, yeah, okay, I realize that's what I do, but then how do you help improve on that? Mm-hmm. And then we're going to do an ongoing, maybe following some few weeks of community. So like support for each other, which would be really cool. So I don't have the info completely in stone yet, but I will. And that will be posted on my website, hopefully by like the end of December.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll link your website to our episode so people can find you whenever you get those details straightened out. So that would be great.
Great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, Kelli. This has been awesome.
Thank you. Again, I absolutely adore you. Thank you for having me. And we'll do something again.
Yeah, we would love it. Would love it.